It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Yong Zhao. Dr. Zhao is a nationally recognized expert in education and the author of a new book entitled Catching Up or Leading the Way: American Education in the Age of Globalization. Dr. Zhao has been newly appointed as the Presidential Chair and Associate Dean for Global Education at the University of Oregon. Dr. Zhao also serves as the Director of the Center for Advanced Technology Education and is a Fellow of the International Academy for Education. Before moving to Oregon just a few short weeks ago, Dr. Zhao was the University Distinguished Professor at the College of Education, Michigan State University, where he also served as the founding director of the Center for Teaching and Technology, the executive director of the Confucius Institute, as well as the U.S.-China Center for Research on Educational Excellence. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Yong Zhao.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you, everybody. It's very good to be back to Oregon. I said back because Oregon is the state I landed first when I came from China in the 1990s. And so it's happy to be an Oregonian again. It's nice. I was a visiting professor at Linfield College first, and then I came back to work very short while before I got my PhD at Illinois at Willamette University. And then I went on to other states, and most of states discovered the reason I came back is that no one knows how to pronounce Oregon. So that's it was a big problem for me, so I got to get back to the right place. And it's also good. It's kind of also interesting too. I've been spoken a lot around you, actually in the past few years, a lot of times in Washington, a lot of California, but no Oregonian wants me to talk to you guys. And this year, suddenly, no, I don't think most people have, without any knowledge that I'm coming to University of Oregon, that suddenly I get a lot of invitation from OEA, but I won't tell you OEA, this is my first public appearance in Oregon OEA, then we'll be talk to the technology group, the NECC, and then talk to the superintendent's group next week, and then after a while, the school boards association. So suddenly I'm flooding Oregon all over. I think you'll get tired of me soon, but I think I'll stay at University of Oregon for a while. Sorry that the team lost, but it was not bad. It's kind of funny because I was at Michigan State. Michigan State lost to Alabama, and I said, well, let's go pick another team, but we lost Auburn, another, so that's another. We can't beat Alabama. I can't beat Alabama, so that's very hard. So thank you again and for having me here, and actually was so happy to see Nancy Golden here again. I think when I had dinner with her a few weeks ago, I didn't realize she was going to be the education advisor to the governor. If I had known that, I would have asked for more money, but thank you. So anyway, the slides I used today is at this website. You can download it if you wish. It's a PDF file. If you want to use other part of it, I can send you the PowerPoint file if you ever want to request it. Before I do anything, this is a talk I gave. It's written based on the book, but I will infuse some other ideas. And this is the nice cover of the book. I want to make sure you can get a glimpse of it. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it. You can't buy it from me, okay? But I have to. Because before I don't have to do this. Now, legally, I have to do this now because I'm an associate kind of a dean. As a professor, I can say anything, right? No, but, now I have to do this disclaimer. I cannot represent the University of Oregon or Michigan or anybody, just representing myself, okay. Also, I look like Chinese. I can't represent all Chinese either, right? So take whatever you like, okay. And don't blame my organization or my people. No, I said about Chinese because recently, China has been in the news a lot in education, right? The president is coming. People always ask, who is the president of China? I said, who is the president of China? That's Hu Jintao, Chinese president. Who is the president? So about recent news, about education news, China. You've heard of this, China scored #1 on the pizza last December. You heard that, right? You read that, all of those things. And many people kept asking me what happened there. So I had to write something about it. So on that website, you saw I've also written blogs a lot about different issues too. What's interesting is this comment about a Sputnik moment of the US. So right now, suddenly, everybody thinks China has the best education system. Makes me regretting that moving to Oregon. I got to go back now again, but you know. And also, this is the Sputnik talk is quite fascinating to think about it, right? And now you think about this small story. Have you seen this article? The Wall Street. I just wrote a blog about it. If you want to read it, actually, I just finished before I came down here. It's super mom. So in China now, suddenly everybody looks great. It's really cool. I think after I left, they just fixed everything up, you know. No. Now, a Sputnik moment. Remember Sputnik moment? Long time ago, right? Some of you may have contributed to the decline of the US at that time, you know. 1957 was a Sputnik year, right? When Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1 and Sputnik 2, even with a dog in it, and all those things were suddenly threw America into a panic mode. And you know, when we are in a panic mode, what we try to do, we look for answers. So how come the Soviet Union had more missiles? Which actually was not true, by the way. Okay, the missile was not, but people believed it was true. So when we are in any crisis in a society, we have this habit of looking at public schools for answers, right? Something must be wrong with the schools. Like now, today, the Wall Street economic crisis, you know, we are actually already seeing media blaming public schools, saying that you did not teach children financial literacy. You did not teach them not to use money they don't have, you know, do not learn from the Congress or government, you know. It's a bad idea, you know. Don't ever borrow money. You did not teach Bernie Madoff it's wrong to steal money from other people either. So what kind of crisis mode is we search for answers in schools. And we did. In the Sputnik moment, after Sputnik, we quickly try to find out what's wrong with our schools. If you look at this two pictures, this is a story in 1958 of Life magazine. And this cover story, or this cover, there's two children, basically tells you what's wrong with American education. It's too happy. The American high school student, look at him, Steven from Chicago. Even from Chicago, he was happy. And that's Alex. Because Steve was not spending time like Alex, studying mathematics, doing chemistry, you know, for physics, or reading serious stories. He was spending time playing sports, doing music, hanging out with friends. And that explained the missile gap, according to this reading. That's Sputnik. People believe that. People always believe that the other countries have more rigorous curriculum. So that's the first time we had a crisis, 50-some years ago. Do you remember At Nation at Risk? Remember that time? This time it's the Japanese now, actually. You know, there were books came out like called The Learning Gap, how the Japanese are better Americans. Education will raise a generation of Americans scientifically, technologically illiterate. 83, if you were in school, you cannot be literate scientifically because schools didn't teach you that way. 1995, TIMSS, third international mathematics study, showing the US almost below average. This gets many people angry in this US because we are behind so many countries we don't even know how to pronounce their names, but we are behind. That gets American politicians really worked up. How can that happen, right? And this study made into Bill Clinton's major State of Union address. The only time any educational research is mentioned. And that was the prompted action goals 2000, if you remember all those kind of things. So lots of reforms coming along, showing the gaps. You know, now Chinese taking over, now Soviet Union, Japan, and now India and China. This is actually another very good film. I don't know if you've seen this, 2 Minutes. Have you seen this one? You have? Okay. Anybody else? If you haven't, don't, and it's not really good, but it's... The reason I say that is it's the same story like in 1958 Life magazine story, except we've chosen different competitors. This time it's China and India. And the other countries did not seem to matter anymore. Once they were going to take over, but they didn't, so we just ignored them. We found new enemies now. The new enemies. And we need to find out, how did China, India grow so fast? Again, must be in education. And China is going to take over the US. So it must be their education. So we go find out what's happening in our education. So the 2 minutes is about 4 years in high school. The filmmaker, Bob Compton, is a venture capitalist who out of Tennessee. So he basically went to Indiana. There's a high school in Indianapolis called Carmel High School. Followed 2 students there, 2 students from India and 2 students from China. And the finding is no different from 1958. The Indians and Chinese spend almost all their waking hours studying mathematics, science, chemistry, rigorous preparing for tests. Not only that, they actually have better, higher aspirations than American high school students. Neil and Brittany here spend most of their time in this beautiful American high school, Carmel High School, suburban Indianapolis, doing sports, again, playing video games, hanging out with friends, running student organizations. And that, according to the film producer, is wrong. And they don't have great aspirations. They only want to go to Purdue and Indiana University, but all the Chinese wants to go to Harvard. That's true. If you watch the film, you know that's the general idea. So I was at actually lunch in a conference in Indiana. So I was at the table. I said, this is really a really bad film, because Indiana, they bought a film for every teacher to see. So the film producer was there by Eli Lilly Foundation, bought them a copy. So I was at the same conference presenting. I said, this is really bad film. When I showed my Chinese and Indian friends, they said, yeah, the Chinese and Indians, those 2 kids will learn how to do computer programming, but they will be programming for the Americans. And I said, so I made a comment. So I didn't know the filmmaker was there. He was very angry I said that. And he said, we should have a debate. I said, oh, yeah, sure. I said, professors love to have debate. I said, okay. So we did have a debate, actually public debate. If you go on a website, you can maybe be able to hear the audio of it, because he refused to be videotaped. Later on, we appeared on different stages, different countries, different times, And somehow, I don't know why he wants to debate again. So next month, I'm going to have another debate with him in Michigan, in my home country. I used to be 15 years. I don't know why, just those people, they're defeated, but they are very persistent. During actually a lot of this talk, I got to know a little bit more about this idea of comparison. Actually, it dawned on me why we consistently and persistently misinterpret education practices in other countries. It's because we impose a cultural framework on other people. We think it's good. For example, Mr. Compton always repeat this story that motivated him to make the film. He said in 2005, he was visiting India. He was talking to first graders, kindergartners, ask them what they want to become when they grow up. He said, all the Indians said, 5, 6-year-olds, they want to become engineers, surgeons, doctors, pilots, all those great aspirations. If you are a parent in the US, your children will never have those dreams. My daughter, she's actually now in the hotel. She's from shopping somewhere now. She's 12. When she was 5, she wanted to become an elephant. And compared to a doctor, that's not very good, right? But I thought that was a pretty cool dream. And I endorsed the dream and supported it all along. I think, many Americans have this dream. My daughter she's finishing middle school. She's going to South Eugene High next year, and she's trying to get in there. But she has changed her dream, wants to be a chef. I thought that's pretty cool. So we spend the summer practicing making cocktail most of the time. I'm not evading any legal law enforcement from Michigan. No, that's nothing, just household. Yeah. Now, when you think about this kind of dream, this talk about there's a global achievement gap. I call this global achievement. It's been there for a while. Always talk about how American schools are not preparing our students to become globally competitive. If you look at the global achievement gaps measured in terms of what we study, how our children spend time, how much time that they spend in school, there is indeed a gap. That is, our test scores in general, I don't want to dispute that. Many people try to dispute, oh, we're comparing apples and oranges. In terms of test scores, we do not perform as well as many countries in the world. In terms of how much time our students spend in school studying the so-called academic core subjects, we do not spend as much time. The Chinese, for example, spend at least 2 hours a day studying mathematics. And in terms of our children studying hours on the academic subjects overall on a day, on a week, we are not even near those people. There is this global gap, or we can call it global achievement gap. The gap has been there for a long time, for a long, long time. If the gap had mattered, we wouldn't be standing here in the US. If we had been bad 50 years ago, 25 years ago, and according to studies, we haven't even changed, we wouldn't be here, right? It would be still bad. But I said, okay, let's look at some other kind of data. I look at other data, economic competitiveness. The US remains the most economically competitive in its top 3, top 1, top 2, depending on the year. You know, despite of our, AIGs and other companies doing crazy stuff, we're still pretty good, And in terms of innovation, number of patents, the US remains the leading country. In terms of capacity for innovation and scientific discoveries, the US leads most countries, actually all the other countries, by 25 to 50 years, according to a Rand Corporation study. By the way, if you want more data, read my book. And China, I want to highlight China as an example. The Chinese economy is growing dramatically. But this is a population contrast. China, India, the US. You can't say Canada from here, but if you take a look, huge. The Chinese economy right now, at least this moment, is supported by cheap labor, huge population. So if you look at what we make, that's not making fun of how our body mass in the US. It's our brain power. The US exports about 95% of royalty license fees. That's China, toy exports. So there's two different economies. If you just look at sheer size, it's different. Now the question for you as educators, for all of us as legislators, as policymakers, is the question to ask. If education mattered, if our education has been so bad, how could it become a dominant knowledge exporter, a knowledge economy?